So I had a question from Andrea Gregerson, and if you guys ever want to submit a question, feel free to submit a question in the show notes below. You mentioned that the next 5 years will create an even bigger financial gap between people. What suggestions do you have for staying ahead and advancing? So let's talk about the 5 scary stats to support my client. I don't usually just say things to say things. Actually, in fact, I never do. It's always data backed. And so I want to walk through the reason I say that and also the solution. And the solution is going to be really good, and it's going to give you guys the exact formula to make this happen. And so I might even play a video for you guys separately. I think is a very good video. I'll watch it as I play it on the screen as well. But the first stat is, let's talk about inflation. So I think inflation is the most obvious pressing issue that we're dealing with right now financially for a lot of people. And so all inflation is a tax on the poor and middle class. And so the wealthy don't get impacted as much by it. They do, but they don't as much. And in fact, sometimes it's good because a lot of the wealthy own businesses, and therefore they raise prices, and all the middle class and poor will pay them for different things. That's just how the world works. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's how it works. And so being a realist with that is important to understand. So this is really crazy data. And I think this is why I feel so passionate about this. So $100 in 1990, I was born in 1991. So I'm dating myself a little bit, is equal to $190 in 2020. So over 30 years, the last 30 years is, somewhat close to it. We've had a 2.2% average inflation leading up to 2020. Obviously we're in 2024 when this is being filmed. $100 in 2021 on the opposite side of that 30 years is $116 in 2024. So 190 versus 116, obviously it hasn't grown at the same pace, but we're also talking a tenth of the time. So 3 years versus 30 years. And so during that 3-year period, and this is on the downside of it as well, we've averaged a 5.1% average inflation. So we've hit 8%, I think it was like 2022 or 2023. We were at 8%, 9% inflation. And so it's come down, and therefore the average has come down as well. However, here's the reality of it is that a lot of this stuff isn't accurate, to be honest, or the CPI data is skewed, or we're looking at it in total. That's 5.1% in total, but like specific sectors of the market, groceries or gas or whatever the case is, or energy, they are being impacted differently during these average inflation periods. But 5%, we're talking more than double over the last 30 years, over the last 3-year period. That is a really big concern. And there is no answers from anybody politician-wise, and this is not a political debate. There are not many answers as to how we're gonna get that down. There's some things being thrown out there, but not a lot. And so $100, let's assume this 5% average going forward, right? Because that's what we used to be at 2 to 3% is a very average place. And especially, I know that because not only was I in the CPI data all my life at Deloitte, but when we would build expectations for thresholds and expectations for different accounts, expense accounts, and like we would factor in inflation, it would always be 2 to 3%. We would never use something so high. We would use CPI data, and that would always come down to 2 to 3%. But we're talking 5.1%, more than 2.2 times 2, 4.4. We're looking at more than 2x that over the last 3 years. Really, really bad trend. If we did $100 at 5% for 30 years, that would equal $432 at the end of that period. When we use stock market assumptions of that 10% we often talk about, that is the gross return or the total return. That is not net of inflation. And so assume historically 2 to 3%, that means those returns we're talking about are really the real returns are 7 to 8%. So when we're talking 10% returns historically, and then we have a 5% inflation, we're not talking big growth. Really, really concerning. And so JP Morgan also did a study, and this is going to blow your mind, is that over any 20-year period, the average investor barely paces inflation. And so if you're the average investor out there and you don't know what you're doing, or you think it's like some game, or you think you'll figure this out, you're not. You're running backwards so fast. It's so scary. And I'm sitting here trying to yell from the mountaintops, pay attention. Not everybody's going to take action. Not everybody's going to actually listen to this message. A lot of people are going to continue to do what they've always done because that's what happens. That's what people do. They do it until all of a sudden they get hit in the face and they realize I was right 10 years ago. And they're like, I wish I would have known earlier. I wish I would have done this earlier. I wish I would have known you earlier. I can't tell you how many times people come across my page on YouTube, on Instagram, on any social media, and they're like, where was Budgetdog 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Well, I'm here, so pay attention. So I'm going to share an investment with you guys of like the average investor, right? So $2,500 for 30 years at a 3% return, which real returns is 0, assuming inflation's 3%, is $1.4 million. 900,000 of that comes from contributions, your own money. And so you only have a $500,000 difference gain. However, that 3% is basically negated because your 3% is taken taken away from inflation. And so if we are the average investor, if we don't know what we're doing in the market, you need help. You need to ask for help. And if you need help from me, I can definitely help you. Always reach out to me in any social media. If you're looking to upgrade your financial life in the Budgetdog Academy, working with my team one-on-one and getting the results that my students do every single day, becoming millionaires, paying off debt, investing a ton of money, learning the financial game and financial landscape, which is moving at a fast rate like we're talking about today, where people are either going really fast to the right or really fast to the left, more so than ever before. The middle class is shrinking. If you're looking to do that and take that to the next level, and you will make over 100,000 and you are serious about change, book a call with my team today in the show notes below. Now, that stat is extremely concerning. Here are some other things that are going to blow your mind. So that's the first one. Remember, I said that there's 5 pieces I want to talk about. Number 2 is the cost of living. So has anybody ever worked in a 9-to-5 corporate job where you get that 1 to 3% raise, and they kind of phrase it as a raise? That's a cost of living adjustment, because that's very normal and it's in line with historical data. So if you have a 2 to 3% inflation rate, they pay you 1 to 3 extra percent a year, basically pacing inflation. That's not a raise. That's a cost of living adjustment, whether they term it whatever they want to term it. The problem is, and what I've seen, even at Deloitte working in these, seeing payroll for everybody, these companies aren't adjusting. And so while our society around us is increasing in price and everything's becoming more expensive, these companies are cutting people. They're staying, cost of living's up 1 to 3% is all you're going to get. We saw this real time with my wife, and they would deny the real life inflation that was happening right in front of our faces. And they denied, and they said, you'll get your 2% raise or cost of living adjustment. That's killing people. And when people understand how money actually works, it's crazy to me. The thought process people have is like, well, I got 2% more. I made 2% or I made 3% more. No, you didn't. Your purchasing power is going down this crapper. You're losing money as we speak. And so when you aren't more than pacing inflation, you are moving backwards at a rapid rate because of the compounding effect of that with time. And so if you don't wake up now, it's not just 6% or 5% or whatever it is right now continued. It is a rapid deceleration that I cannot explain how impactful for your everyday life is going to be. Because in 10 years, when you see this play out and you haven't taken action, you're not going to be living the life that you live. But here's the thing, and the government knows this. If they slowly build this expectation that living standards is not the way it used to be, they'll slowly fade you into a lifestyle that you accept, and it's really different if you look 10 years ago from now. So if in 10 years from now, you're living a way different lifestyle, but you don't really feel that because you slowly kind of slid into that lifestyle, and now it's just like the everyday, and you wonder why you're so anxious and mad and upset, but you realize it's because they slowly made that happen. It wasn't just overnight, but if you looked at 10 years ago versus how your lifestyle is now, you're gonna be like, wow, this is night and day. And if you would have woken up at this time, you wouldn't be in that position. And there's a chance that you're not gonna be if you take the right steps, you work with professionals, you do get the results that you should be getting. That's a big concern. And I'm seeing this across the board with a lot of different industries, and also people getting cut. These companies can't keep up with all of the cost of goods, and they're making adjustments internally because cost of goods go up, and therefore they have to make budget cuts internally. And sometimes people that don't provide a lot of value, and we'll talk about that in a second, are getting off the chopping block. AI, we'll talk about that in a second. The third stat I want to talk about is average salary. So the average salary in 1991 when I was born was $20,000. The average house was $120,000. So there was a 6x multiple. 2024, let's speed this up a little bit. $63,000 average income. $501,000 average house. $500,000. Blown away. When I grew up, like $1 million house was like a big deal. Like that was like, wow, $1 million house? Are you serious? Like somebody has $1 million house? Now I walk around my neighborhood and I see a lot of $1 million houses, and it's like a very normalized thing. In fact, I think the cheapest house in our neighborhood might be the average house price of $500,000. And so that is an expectation almost in today's society. I think it's 1 in 7 houses or something are above $1 million. We aren't keeping up and pacing with our average income. And so as average incomes don't go up a lot and there's an 8x multiple, we 2x more. Like that's not sustainable. And that's why people can't afford housing. In the specific areas of this country, like California or New York or, somewhere expensive, a lot of people are being priced out and they can't even buy. And therefore they're losing equity and they're renting their entire life. And therefore they're moving backwards even at a quicker rate. And so the average salary is becoming a big issue as in relation to the average house price. And so the average income can't afford that regular house. We know that, but a good rule of thumb to live by is 3 to 5x of your income, your gross income, that is like total amount of income, is a good rule of thumb from a purchase price. If you make $100,000, anywhere from a $300,000 house to $500,000 house is reasonable based on regular normal math, right? Now I get different situations. And again, you might be listening to this in California, like there's no way I could afford a house for that price. Everything in my area is $850 and I make $100,000. This is what I'm talking about. Wake up, because we might need some location changes. This might be something you have to do for your family to be in a different position. This is a significant concern, and it's playing out right in front of us, but nobody sees it because it's abstract in a sense. Money is abstract. Sure, you have a physical bill, but money is abstract to a lot of people, and they don't understand the purchasing power loss that is occurring right in front of your eyes because of all of these things that we're doing internally as a country to basically raise inflation. The next piece, and I want you guys to refer to an entire video on this, is middle class shrinkage. I want you guys to realize the seismic shift that's occurring over the last 50 years. And I can't give this justice. I did a whole entire video on this. So in the top right-hand corner, watch this entire video of what is happening to the middle class. This is based on data and facts. And I show and outline what's happened over the last 50 years. And it's not good. So somebody in the middle class is evaporating before our eyes. And I'll let that video do its justice and explain everything. Again, top right-hand corner. But man, you got to wake up because you're going to be on poor street really quick. And like I said, there's going to be a slow progression to this for a lot of people. It's going to be a slow lifestyle adjustment to where, okay, we'll take away one thing. Oh, we'll get you accustomed to that. Then we'll take away another thing. We'll get you accustomed to that. Then we'll take away the normalization of buying a house. We'll get accustomed to that. Before you know it, you're so reliant on the government, and it's a big problem. And so I'm seeing this trend happen right in front of our eyes, and we need to pay attention as a group of people, especially following this page, Budgetdog, YouTube. Hit the follow button, obviously, because we are experiencing numbers that we haven't experienced in the past, which gets me to my fifth piece, which is the advancement of AI technology. Now, I can't tell you how big of a deal this is that people aren't making. Many jobs are at high risk of being replaced by AI over the next decade. I think everyone knows that, but everyone doesn't understand how this plays out. According to the McKinsey report, one of the most trusted reports, AI is expected to replace 2.4 million jobs, US jobs that is, by 2030, with an additional 12 million occupational shifts. An expected 400 to 800 million people will lose their jobs due to AI. Front desk roles, secretarial roles, receptionist roles, customer service roles, retail sector, healthcare sector, food service, transportation, any task-based roles that don't have a lot of judgment or thinking involved. If you're that person, this could extend to the finance sector, it could extend to the educational sectors. If you're that individual that you're not providing a lot of value to your company, you're more checking in, clocking in, doing the basics, tasks that they set you up to doing, it is on you to get out of that role and start to think bigger and ascend yourself within the company. Do not sit there. I can't tell you how many people just sit in the same role their entire life. I used to audit people at Deloitte, and we would be consultants in a sense. We would go around, we talk to the different individual employees, and I can't tell you how many people would just be like, I don't know, I just do it because I do it. And they would just do the same thing over and over and over, and they would never think about the big picture of how this company operates. And obviously as a consultant, that's what I did. So I would see how everything connects, and I was thinking about big picture and thinking and judgment and how can we cut this position, how can we trim this position, et cetera, et cetera. And all these people were just sitting there just clueless, just sitting in their cubicle doing the same thing over and over and over because they feel safe, they feel comfortable, and comfort is the enemy. And those people will get wiped off the face of the earth, and they will, and this is my take, and there's a big sell on this isn't just me, is UBI will become normalized, a universal basic income. And so this is gonna, obviously there's gonna be lower incomes based on this, because UBI is not gonna be a great lifestyle, but it's gonna get you by, but it's gonna be more socialist and more reliant on the government. And this isn't a political take, it's just the reality. That's how this is based on very simple principles. And so for those that don't know what universal basic income is, I'll read the exact definition. It is a social welfare proposal in which all citizens of a given population regularly receive a minimum income in the form of an unconditional transfer payment without a means test or a need to work. That is going to be a lot of people's reality in a decade. Very much so. And you have an opportunity right now. We are at a very important time in history. You are either going to go this way or this way. It is on you to decide. You get to choose, which is very cool, but I'm seeing this. People aren't woken up. People are not waking up. People aren't seeing this. People aren't making the proper adjustments. And so this data, these stats, these facts I've shared with you are exactly why I think, and going back to the initial question, is I think there's going to be a big separation of wealth in the next 5 years specifically. And I think that's going to extend into the 10-year cycle as well. So that gets me to my point of the problem and also the solution. There's always going to be problems in life. And so whether it impacts more people or less people, there's going to be problems. And so the more you wake up, the better. The problem though is fear causes people to freeze. And so this is what happens. You listen to this video, you listen to to the news headlines, you listen to all this stuff, and this is a fearful time. And I don't say this to fearmonger. This is just based on data and facts and the trajectory we're headed. And I'm just trying to wake people up. Problem is, a lot of you will freeze at this and you won't take action. You'll say, okay, as a result, situation's going to get worse. I need to become saving. I need to save. I need to hoard. And whether you think that consciously or subconsciously, it's happening. You're starting to tighten up. Your chest is tightening. You're thinking, I need to save more money. I'm going to keep more money. That is the worst thing that you can do. Here's exactly why. If I save money, if I keep money, and I'm saving this money, it's going to get routed by inflation, number one. Number two is I'm going to stay in the same position. And if you stay the same, you're moving backwards. And if I keep doing the same job and I'm not developing myself with the money I earn, I'm moving backwards, and I will be replaced by AI with time because I don't have as much value to this company as I should. And so the solution, the very obvious solution, and this is very hard for people to do because of the problem and the fear that I talked about of people freezing and afraid to let go. If you're afraid to let go, you're going to be basically destroyed with time. That's what's going to happen. It's going to get worse if you sit there. Develop income streams by buying cash flowing assets is the most obvious thing. So stocks, real estate, businesses. However, also invest in your skill sets and your education. And I talk to all my students about this, and this is not a sell in my academy by any means. If you are well equipped financially and you know what you're doing and you're taking your income that you're making from all your income streams because you've actually set yourself up the right way. We talk about this in my national bestseller, The Roadmap to Financial Freedom, A Millionaire's Guide to Building Automated Wealth, which all my Budgetdog Academy students go through. If you want to book a call with my team, you can. Go in the show notes below and just book a call. Make sure you're making $100,000 or more, your spouse is there, and you're ready for serious change. And if you are, that's totally fine. Book a call with my team. We'll see if you're a good fit, and we'll work with you if we can help you. If you develop your skill sets first that produce more income, that produce more value in the marketplace, especially with a marketplace that's adopting a lot of AI technology to wipe out all the task-based or like monotonous type of positions, and you start to provide value in the marketplace, you as a result will get paid more money. You will pace inflation, but you also dominate the market from an income perspective. You then take that income, the active income, and you put it into, like I said, developing income streams passively through cash flowing assets like stocks, real estate, businesses. Stocks, I talk about all the time, financially free from stocks. We have 4 different syndications plus a personal residence. We have 3 business equity interests. We have a lot of that. Also, during this time, I've invested $25,000 a clip to invest in skill sets, to invest in the right people to come into my business, to come into my life and help me with different things I can implement. And because I have more access to them and I know I'm going to take action, and now I learn what these smart people are doing because I've invested in myself using the active income I made from my job, I now 100x from where I was. And that's, I really actually did like 100x from my old salary. So this all came because I took that active income from that job that I wasn't making a ton of money. I was making $50,000 a year at Deloitte when I first started, and I ended at 96. So it wasn't like I was making a ton of money, but I took my side hustle income, all that stuff, and I started investing in courses and education and skill sets and mentors. And I brought people into my life to 10x me, to bring the right people in. Some were paid, some weren't. But the thing is, when you take all of that money and you actually use it, it's a tool. Money is a tool. So when you hoard it, you're not using your tool, and that's why you're going to go to die, because inflation will suffocate you, AI will suffocate you, you will be a shell of yourself if you don't take action. And so if you're very progressive and you're going to take action, you're going to take that active income, you're going to multiply your income with skill sets, with mentors, with education, because you know more, you're more skilled, and you can provide more value. Then you take that and you buy passive assets that will pay you for a lifetime. That's your solution to this whole problem. And so it's no different of a solution than it was 20 years ago, but it's more important. It's more pressing than it ever has been, because the rapid acceleration that we are experiencing with the data that I shared. House prices in relative basis to average salary has 2x to more. Cost of living stayed the same increase wise internally, while inflation is at 5.5 more than 2x over the last 30 years. Crazy times. Middle class is shrinking. I said, watch the video. AI is going to replace our jobs. There is no, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I'm internally in my own business utilizing AI every single day. And so this stuff is coming fast. And if you're not prepared, you are going to be suffocated quick. And I hope you take action today. Again, if you're looking to work with our team, go in the show notes below, take action today, book a call. Let's get this started, because we need to put you on the right path before the end of the end. And I will see everybody next week.